So I would say maybe focus a little bit more on studying, and there is some great resources everywhere to study with. Your masterclass is one of them, which I own. Like somebody recommended it to me, and it's helped me quite a bit. Like even just for the ranges, the opening ranges, I feel like the masterclass in itself is worth. But yeah, it's so much more than that. So yeah, just study more. I think find whenever you have some time, put the priority on studying before. Then once you've studied, try to apply what you've studied, but don't just play and study just a little bit on the side, because I feel like that's a mistake that I make myself.
Yeah. So you don't necessarily need a lot of time, but the time you have available, use it wisely, effectively, study wisely, not just randomly watching some videos. Try always to learn something from the videos, some takeaways, and try to implement it in your game next time. Welcome everyone. Today joining me, ToD, a very well-known Warcraft 3 player and streamer, or former pro, one of the best players in the world, and probably the best human player in the world. And really happy to have him here today. And he's also a part-time poker player. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're also occasionally streaming poker on Twitch. Mostly, of course, Warcraft. He's also hosting StarCraft. So a very busy man. Luckily, he crammed up some time for us here to join me today to review one of his biggest deep runs in the last year, which was a 50 euro tournament on PokerStars FR, which he satellited in for €5. And since we also have a lot of viewers that play poker part-time, that don't have the time to dedicate all the time to studying and grinding, ToD has for sure some valuable advice to share when it comes to playing poker on the side and also having a main profession such as streaming and casting. So welcome, ToD. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for the intro. You said, correct me if I'm wrong. So first of all, you say that I'm very busy. You're way more busy and productive than me. So you were wrong on that.
I see you on Twitch every day. Almost like if I check Twitch, I see you online there in the grind, in the mix, and then also editing and uploading video. I know how busy it is, so
yeah,
I'm not so sure about that.
Definitely, you're still more busy and more productive than me. I can promise you that. Like I see everything.
I'm not so sure about that, but everyone has his own perspective.
Yeah, and I play poker like recreationally, and like I take it somewhat seriously. I study a bit here and there, like not as much as I should perhaps, and then I try to play whenever I have some free time to have some fun with it.
How do you, maybe before we jump into reviewing some hands of this big tournament, what would be your advice to someone who doesn't have the time to play poker full time? Is there something that helps you to free up some time, or mindset wise to still get the most out of it to playing poker part time?
I think just whatever time you have, just make it as effective as possible in terms of like studying to playing. I think like even, I don't know that I should be giving any advice, because even I personally, I feel like I play way too much compared to what I should study, the ratio to study and playing. So I would say maybe focus a little bit more on studying, and there is some great resources everywhere to study with. Your masterclass is one of them, which I own. Like somebody recommended it to me, and it's helped me quite a bit. Like even just for the ranges, the opening ranges, I feel like the masterclass in itself is worth. But yeah, it's so much more than that. So yeah, just study more. I think find whenever you have some time, put the priority on studying before. Then once you've studied, try to apply what you've studied, but don't just play and study just a little bit on the side, because I feel like that's a mistake that I make myself.
Yeah. So you don't necessarily need a lot of time, but the time you have available, use it wisely, effectively, study wisely, not just randomly watching some videos. Try always to learn something from the videos, some takeaways, and try to implement it in your game next time.
Session review using the range viewer as well, like stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of free stuff on YouTube, right? From other streamers, from myself, that you can pick up some things that you find interesting or helpful for your own game. Yeah. And for upcoming streamers, any advice for someone who might consider streaming on a regular basis, building a brand, gaining some attention?
I think streaming is a lot about like, it's a bit of a grind. It's kind of like poker, like you need to put in a lot of hours. I think consistency is key, and just really like kind of sticking with it, no matter like sometimes, when you start out, you're not going to have many viewers. Sometimes you have to grind a year or two before finally you can start having more viewer and having your stream really take off. And I think also being very unique, like being able to bring something special to the table. Like I feel like a lot of streamers, they just kind of like, it depends what you're doing, but in gaming at least, especially a lot of good players, they stream and they don't get many viewers because they don't put much effort into it. There is no webcam, they never commentate. Like people that watch streams, they don't just want to study, they want to be entertained as well. So I think it's very important to put a lot of effort into that and emphasis, so that if you're able to, the more stuff you can bring like that, like the higher quality your stream is in general, with everything, sound quality, webcam, non-stop commentary, the more viewers you're gonna get. But I mean, I'm pretty lucky myself because I'm like, semi well known in the gaming world. So I feel like immediately if I go live, even though my stream might not necessarily always be the best quality, like some days I'm pretty tired, I don't even commentate that much, I still get decent viewers. I can still feel a difference myself. Like when I'm well rested and I'm commentating nonstop and I'm like really positive, which sometimes is hard, I definitely get a lot more attention, viewers, and people are more engaged and stuff, and they support me more. So these are like the important aspects of it.
That's the upside when you have been so consistent now. You have been competing in esports for more than 10 years. You have been streaming for a long time, that then also your viewers are a little bit more empathic when you don't have a good day, and they're still going to watch you because there's a much bigger identification with the streamer because you have been there for quite some time, and they understand sometimes they're shitty days and they will forget about that and still support you. So you don't always need to show up with your A game and you still have a decent viewership. Do you think that a lot of young boys and girls that consider streaming try to find the perfect plan or be perfect before they put themselves out there and start streaming?
I don't think so. I think like I've run into so many people over the years that they think that streaming is going to be a certain thing, but it's completely different. It's probably, I think it's the same with poker as well, right? Like you're like, I'm just going to do this, and this, and then you go into it and you're like, okay, it's absolutely like completely different than what I thought. And I think for streaming, you shouldn't really have very high expectations when you're starting out. And like, it's not just about putting in the hours either. Like there's a lot of streamers, they just stream insane hours and it's always the same thing and stuff. And they don't really take off and stuff. I would say definitely a little bit of a luck to it too, for sure, right? I feel like I've said it. I'm myself very fortunate that I've been in the video game industry for a very long time. So I'm like somewhat of a well-known name, but maybe if I wasn't, then I wouldn't be getting the same viewers and stuff. So sometimes it's just about getting noticed. Getting a lucky host might get you noticed and stuff. So that's why you increase these opportunities by just being very consistent, streaming a lot, and always trying to increase the value of the entertainment that's on your stream through everything. Like nothing should be bad on your stream. The sound quality is important, webcam, and I think the interactivity, the positivity, everything.
But maybe some people don't have the money in order to afford a very good microphone or a good cam, right?
I think like there is definitely some decent ones for like, budget. When I say like a good cam, I don't mean it needs to be like ultra HD or something, right? But it needs to be something watchable. Like you can get a 1080p webcam for like, I don't know, $60, $80.
Yeah. I feel
like it's an investment, right?
Of course.
Like if you
that's
just
true.
work towards buying that, and then once you have it, that's something that you have set on your stream for good. Same for microphone. Like I don't think you need like a ultra HD microphone. Just don't have like a supermarket microphone that costs like, I don't know, $10, right?
Yeah, fair enough. It's not like that you need to invest thousands of euros. It's if you compare it to poker, it's of course a couple of €100. But if you compare it to every business, if you want to go to the gym and you want to get into fitness, you need supplements, you need some devices, you need also equipment. The same for Twitch. Too many people are not really willing to invest something, whether it's time or money. So yeah, definitely a good point. And don't forget, it's it's always better to invest in yourself than to consume the money. And I think a lot of viewers that might have the excuse of, yeah, but I don't have the money, are actually then, buying the €8 coffee from Starbucks. So then you should really reconsider your priorities and where you maybe can save some money. And then after a few months, you'll be able to buy or afford the equipment. Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would say let's jump into some hands. What is the first hand? The plan is we go a little bit through the early game, a couple of hands, and then later on we jump into the final table play. So if you're here maybe to just watch some final table action, will be more later on this video. Now we're going to focus a little bit more on the early game. So let's start with the first hand. 7-4 suited. So first of all, 750 big blinds. I have to admit, the Tournament Masterclass does not have 750 big blind ranges.
We need new ranges.
We need new ranges. All right.
Opening 200% from the button.
To be fair, actually, a big fallacy, a big misconception is people think the deeper they are, the more hands they can play, which is not always true. For example, from under the gun, you actually play much tighter because people are going to be flat calling more. The same principle applies for them as well. You're deeper and they're going to be calling more in position because they have position and they're deep. A lot of speculative hands become more lucrative to call. Also for middle position and button cutoff. So you're going to be playing more out of position, which means that a lot of the hands that you're opening with are not profitable anymore. A lot of the EV from opening from every position is playing in position. But when then you're so deep, you suddenly start playing more out of position. You should start open raising tight in the first place and trying to have more equity. Hands like 6-5 suited from under the gun for 100 big blinds are not open raises on 8-handed, 9-handed tables or 7-6 suited. Because think about when the money goes in when you make a flush. Very likely you have a weaker flush. Yeah. So you need to hit 2 pairs or straights. But even if you get it, let's say the board is ace-7-6 and the money goes in for 100 big blinds, you're running into ace-7, ace-6, ace. So even when you hit your very strong hands, you can't really play for stacks that deep. If you go broke with 2 pair for 7-6 suited for 30 big blinds, that's a different thing. But for 100 big blinds, when there's already so little hands that you can go broke with 7-6 suited or so many runouts, then you should already consider whether this is an open race in the first place anyway.
Yeah.
So 7-4 suited. I guess you decided to call it. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your thought process behind calling here on the button?
I think we're so deep, and I always even though it's a €50 tournament, I always consider those fields not to be necessarily the most amazing. So it's 750 deep, even if I lose 20 big blinds or something, I feel like playing in position, I'm gonna have a shot to make some chips sometimes, and I'll get to find out how people are playing and stuff.
It's not horrible. I would still fold simply because it's again about equities, and you won't make good hands often. And it will happen that you make a flush and this guy has a higher flush, and it's just, I would call it 7-5 suited, just having a little bit more equity against 4. We have to draw the line somewhere, and for me it would be 7-5 suited here. Also, this guy opens 3x, so I mean, with this hand, you basically can never play for the entire stack. It will never happen anyway, or very, very rarely, but you have to hit quads and he has a top full house or something. So it has to be 7-7, 7, king, whatever, and he has kings, It has to be an extreme setup. But let's say, apart from that, you never really be able to play a big board. Even if you hit trips with your 7 or your 4, he's gonna have better trips most of the time. So you don't really have a lot of nut potential with this hand, and especially if you're deep, suited aces, even suited kings, or at least more connectivity. 7-6, 8-7. You step the flop.
Yeah, he checks. And then when he checks, I just think it looks so weak. So I figured I'd take a stab. I don't need to bet big either. I bet slightly less than 50%. I think it would look too suspicious if I bet a third or a quarter.
No, not necessarily. Don't try to think too much what looks suspicious. What is he going to do with his 5s? Do you think he's going to go crazy if he's pocket 5s and you bet 1/3? Or his 7-8 or his 9-8 suited, hands that have completely missed? because what does really change? Like if he has tens, if he has jack 10, if he has a checking hand, he can check call against pretty much any sizing, like pocket tens, queen 10, jack 10, maybe weak king, maybe ace queen. Like these hands are going to be check calling also against a pot size bet. But let's say if he has pocket threes, you bet 1/3 he folds. Like he can't continue unless he's a huge recreational. But let's not assume that. So I would just bet 1/3, and especially also try to always think about what you're trying to attack. What are you trying to accomplish? We want to make him forward deuces to eights here. We want to make him forward like ace 8 off that has missed, or maybe
that's what I was thinking actually.
Yeah. So then pick hands that don't block it. So like for example ace deuce, you can step, but fours and seven, you block a lot of his folding range, fours and sevens. So you can take all your suited aces, and you have an additional gut shot. So especially on the flop and turn, you always want to bet that has some equity. Like if you have an ace, because if he has queen 10, you're dead. Like you have to make runner. But if you have ace deuce, you at least have the gutter. Even if it's just 2-3 outs, you still have some immediate outs. You don't have it with 4-7. Plus, if you have the backdoor nut flush draw, you have another 2-3 additional percentages of equity. So try to not just think, okay, he shows weakness, I bet everything. It will bring you in a lot of tricky spots that later on can be very expensive. And it also has no playability unless you hit a club. But let's say pretty much any, like if we have ace deuce, where we block ace queens, we block a lot of his stronger check calls, we can also bet any turn and just, even follow through, because a lot of the time with his queen 10, jack 10, he will play check called flop, check called turn, and then fold unimproved the river. So even on a blank run out, if he has ace queen, jack 10, we can just fire through. We block ace king, we block aces that he might be check calling with. So we block the strongest check calls in his range. Plus we unblock a lot of his folds like queen 10, jack 9, pocket tens.
But in my mind, like my reasoning here was that if he had anything at this point, he would have bet the flop, except maybe some sort of jack. So I thought that if I double barrel here, I can make him fold maybe even a jack.
On the turn, certainly, but the thing is that a lot of his check calls consist of equity. Like he's not opening queen 7 off, only suited combos, and the off-suited combos outweigh the suited combos. So he has way more queen 10 off combos. He has way more ace queen combos. He has way more even. He's not gonna fold ace jack off with a gutter and best kicker. I don't think so. Maybe something like jack 7 suited, but again, it's just suited. And there's a jack. It's only 3 combos. But he has more than 12 combos of queen 10 if he decides to check call. And this is just one hand. Then he has jack 10, he has pocket 10s, king 10, king 9. All these hands that have to start checking on the flop because they're not strong enough to go 3 streets for value. So you were basically attacking, I guess your fold equity might be just 10-15% on the flop because he has so many offsuited combos that can easily continue against a turn bet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So always trying to think of suited and suited combos is very essential. However, I like your approach to be very aggressive against checks. I think it works out really well in the long term. It just needs a little bit of better hand selection and better reasoning. Like it's always better if you're a little too aggressive to make a step back than trying to explain someone, you have to be more aggressive. You're already having naturally this approach of being more aggressive in these spots because especially in low stakes, people play very straightforward. As you said, if you would have something, you would have bet or check raised. So now you start attacking his weaker part of the range. But this board is a little bit too... Yeah. River, do you consider bluffing or...
No. After he called 2, I'm like, this is like almost one of the worst cards as well. Like any 10 got there. So.
Oh, he even has 2 pairs.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked to see what he had.
Yeah, this is what you see on low stakes as well very often, that people are too afraid. I mean, we have king 9, king 10, king 8, king 7. Like he can go 3 streets for value if the run out is safe. He blocks king queen, he blocks king jack. So yeah, very afraid here to go 3 streets for value with his 2 pair.
Props to him, he got a lot of value out of this one.
It worked out against you, yeah.
Yeah.
And then also if he has ace queen, if he has ace jack, we would get these hands to fold if we, let's say, barrel our ace deuce or ace 3 on the 9, or 10 we make a straight anyway, because he will also have some straights himself, but he also will have some one pair hands that we get to fold him on the river. So even if the 10 gets there, because we also barrel a lot of 10-8 ourselves, like we have all the ace 10s, we have all the king 10s, we have bluffs like 10-8, 10-7 suited, 10-8 suited, we have all the 10-9s ourselves, 10-9 suited. So we have so many value hands that we should definitely bluff some ace deuce, ace 3 suited here and just triple it through. 750 big blind poker masterclass.
Yeah, I think they go up at least decently fast after that. So open, 2.5, button calls.
No, small blind, right?
Oh yeah, small blind. Yeah. Then I bet 2/3 almost. What do you think?
What's your reasoning to size up like this?
I think in the small blind, like, again, like usually I play in micros and stuff, but I still think a 50 euro on a weekend still has like so many recreationals and stuff. So I always assume that most people are before I've had much information. So I feel like he's probably got like a lot of bad hands in his range. Like I feel like this board favors me so much more being under the gun, and also like having ace queen with the ace of spade. I got some decent backdoor equity. I already blocked like some of the stronger hands that he could have himself. So I feel like he's gonna have a lot of basically garbage that he's gonna have to let go.
Just tell me some hands.
Advantage.
Just tell me some hands that you would like to fold him out, or would you like him to fold?
Like most small pocket pairs, like everything that's not spades, everything that's like far away from broadways. Like you want me to tell you specific hands, or?
Yeah, that's poker pairs already enough. Do you think they're not folding against on 1/3 bet?
I'm not sure. Actually, like this deep, I feel like a lot of people, they have like this carefree thing. It's like, oh, it's only 4 big blinds and I have 750, so they'll maybe make the call here at this stage of the tournaments. So I'm not sure here.
I'm not trying to argue with you whether your bet is good or not. What I really like is that you're aware of what you're trying to accomplish, because essentially behind every bet size we try to accomplish something, either to get value from a certain part in his range or to fold out a certain part in his range. And here, I mean, I agree with you that we don't really know if he bet 1/3, if he has pocket sevens, it's a paired board, he knows we're going to be betting this board a lot. He might be calling once, right? And then we don't really know what to continue in the turn. But against the 3/4 pot size bet, it's very likely he starts folding all of them right now. And then we basically narrowed down his range way more. We know he's not going to have a lot of these pairs. So we basically bet once big on the flop. We polarize ourselves. We're also going to be checking some king eggs. So we're either going to bet a draw, semi-draw, backdoor draw, or a jack. Or maybe aces. Like if we have queens, we very likely check back. If we have tens, we very likely check back. Or maybe weak king, we want to check back. But this sizing allows us to get more information and attack his under pairs right away. So I really like that you try to understand, or you try to apply this concept in theory, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, doesn't matter, to attack a certain part in his range. Too many people just auto c-bet 1/3 every single time. Like sometimes you want to bet small, sometimes you want to bet big. So yeah, I really like your approach here on the flop to bet that big.
I'm not very good at knowing my ranges and their ranges. Like it's very hard for me on most flops to be like, oh, my range is ahead there and stuff, because I'm not super good at this. But so like for my sizings, a lot of the time they rely more on ball texture.
Well, but at this point, you know, you're aware you're from under the gun, you know your range is tight. This hits your range
exactly.
really well.
So
that's
this
enough.
one, yeah, it seems more straightforward. Yeah, like the more draws there are, for me on this kind of boards, it's like almost in this situation, it's almost inconceivable to bet like very small. I feel like you have to bet big all the time, because I don't understand like the intricacies of like where you would bet smaller and like what part of his range you would want to attack, for example.
It's not that important. It's important usually when you don't have a good hand. When you have a good hand, it's very often a no-brainer. But if you don't have a good hand, then just the only question you need to ask yourself, what am I trying to fold out? And if you can name a few hands that you can fold out with a bigger sizing that wouldn't fold out against a smaller sizing, then it very likely makes sense to go for a bigger sizing. Plus, also, of course, it should be a board texture where he has, like, for example, on 7, 8, 9, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because he just has so many, like, Jack 10s, 10 9s, 10 8s, like, all these hands are very, and still Ace 10s, King 10s, open straight draws with overcards. He has way more stronger hands.
Yeah.
But here, yeah, makes...
He called with check, and we just 5 spades. And he don't bets, like, looks like a value bet. And that it just feels like his whole line looks kind of weak. Overall, like, sometimes I guess people here will show up with some sort of like 2 lower spades and they made like a weird flush or something, but you could also have like just like a weak king. I think like a jack here is, he almost never has a jack, I feel like. And I have the ace of spades, so I was like, all right, let's just... I always see it in videos and stuff. Oh, I got the blocker here for the nut flush. So I went for it. I don't go for it very often. So I thought about the sizing. I feel like here I used to make it way too small a lot. Like I would have done like, 14 or 15. And I was like, I need to make it like a pretty good sizing where it actually looks like I might have it. And he lets it go.
Even though it worked out, I'm not such a big fan of it because his range is... Yes, you're right. I would think that a jack would size up, but also I'm just not a big fan of trying to bluff people off of top pairs. You're just basically trying to bluff him off a top pair. And you never know how these people roll. Usually when it went check on the turn, they have a hard time folding a top pair on the river. When you don't represent a lot of as well. It's super easy from his perspective to level himself into a call. It's like, yeah, you have ace 10, ace in spades, ace queen, ace in spades, queen 10. So it always depends on the person. I wouldn't say necessarily it's a big bluff. I can't provide you with 100% proof that is a bad bluff. It's just based on my experience, based on the limits I play, that I feel people are very stubborn there with the top pair. I'm way more aggressive when ranges are much wider, when people have ace highs, king highs, mid pairs, under pairs. That's where I try to bluff. But respect for your coronas. I mean, to be fair, it's a line that is not being taken as a bluff very often. Like usually when I face a check call the flop, it goes check turn, I bet the river and they raise, I feel like they always have it. And I call every single time.
So you see, we fast forwarded like a couple levels and already now everybody's around 150 bigs at most.
Yeah,
so
that's a bit weird. Then better make it 100 and make the first level slower so you play a comfortable post flop stack size you're used to, and then go from there instead of 750s, make quick levels, and then you're at 100 big blinds. I don't know. Don't get the idea behind it, but yeah.
I make it 9 bigs. Usually out of position, I will do like 4x, but I think I had like one more because of the stack sizes.
Yeah.
And he calls, and this again, this is like one of those where on the flop I feel like I have to bet quite big. And then if he would re-raise me here, I would be on tilt instantly. On this kind of board, it would not be a good time. Because like the guy looked, I don't have much info on him, but I already like with the few stats that I got, it looks like he called, he plays pretty wide, right? 41.
Yeah, I like it. You should definitely fold if he raises though.
Yeah.
And then, if the board is a low run out, you can also play for stacks. He's going to probably call down any king, jack, king, queen, maybe some hero calls with queen 10, queen, jack, or jacks or queens. But you get, like my line, usually, okay, against this specific opponent, I like your line. It's very exploitative, big sizing. I would go for big bet flop, big bet turn, and then decide on the river run out. It's like king 10, 9, deuce, I just play 3 streets. If it's king 10, 9, 8, 5, if there's no queen, jack, or king, or 10, these 4 cards, I just play 3 streets for value.
Yeah.
Against the good rack, it's a little trickier because you're essentially turning your hand into a bluff. Because if you go 3 streets for value, they're going to have all the sets, all the straights. If they don't raise them, then it's hard to get value from worse. So it's at some street you have to check.
2.5 under the gun, 4x, 3 bets, and he just lets it go KO. I wish you could mark the hand specifically a little bit, because then I would have prepared that. Let's see this. 7s on the stack size, like, I feel like, I don't know, I don't like reshoving at this stage.
No.
And it's like, honestly, I wish it was a 2x, because then it makes the call a little easier. But yeah, 2.5x, I thought this was really borderline, but I feel like I have to call. I feel like my hand is too strong for me to fold it.
I'm folding even against the min raise almost, to be honest.
Yeah?
It's these spots are very close to 0 EV. So I would, even against the min raise, just fold. There are too many players left to act that can wake up with, like, it's not, I think 7s is a threshold. I'm more leaning towards folding. I would play 8s, but I think 6s should always be a fold, and 7s is very close. But against the 2.5x, I'm pretty sure you should fold.
Same guy. 2x, the stack size shove it, pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Also a spot where you should be calling off very tight, like ace queen plus, 9s plus. Don't levy yourself calling with ace jack or even ace jack suited in pocket 8s, because they reshove from the big blind against under the gun. They're going to be on 7s plus, 8s plus, ace jack plus, and then what do you want to accomplish with ace jack there? Just punting off money. Against some opponents, I've even raised folding ace queen off there.
I think this may be a spot where I was not sure. Oh yeah, no, never mind. He checked. Or he limped his small blind. Then he min bets. And then he bets kind of big. This guy had seemed like somewhat decent up to this point, so I just let this one go. Like, he doesn't feel like he ever would have worse here, really.
Oh, he still has some draws, like 6-5, 10-8, jack 10. As a very easy rule of thumb, blind versus blind ranges are so wide. That's why I like bluffing blind versus blind so much. You're even supposed to continue with some 7x if you picked up, if you floated with like jack 7 and diamonds or something. You blind versus blind middle pair, you have to call flop and you have to call turn. Unless it's a super crazy board like 10-9, 8-7, 4 suited. Then you
if the guy is like really tight.
It's the problem with blind versus blind is even if the guy is tight, he's still going to be having 6-5 suited, 10-8 suited, jack 10. Like, if this guy understands a little bit poker and if he plays a 50-euro tournament and has some decent stats, he will understand that he can also barrel draws. He knows that you will have some ace high floats, you will have a 4 very often. So it's not that it's a super intricate topic. So I would, as a rule of thumb, here, like, I can really not imagine a scenario where I would ever fold 9-8 here on the turn. Even though you block some draws. But even if he has king queen, you also still have 5 outs. The guy literally has to bet only queen x and better to make this a fold ever. And then we fold the river. He will give up some bluffs.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I have seen also low stakes, because they are afraid of playing out of position. They don't want to check call, and he just value bets his ace-7 because he's like, I don't know what to do. I just bet.
So you hate the fold on the turn, or you think he's
no?
Oh, okay.
I would never fold there. Also low stakes, and yes, some people might say, but Ben, you don't play low stakes. Well, I play $11 Sunday Storm. I play $20 Big 11. $20 Big 11. the 20. What is it? Big 22 sometimes. So you played the Big 11. I have low stakes. Some students that I coach on low stakes. So I see still some shit going on low stakes against what people do against other players, not necessarily only against me. So I'm pretty sure this can never be a fold.
Yeah. And then this is shortly or like a little bit after.
Yeah, I like it. A bit of bigger sizing, but it can never be too bad with your value hands on lower stakes. Usually I would make around 6 big blinds, 6.5 big blinds, but that's just that's not a blunder.
Yeah, it's not a reshove, right?
No, it's 3 bet of you for sure, yeah.
Especially because it looks like,
Yeah.
We're always gonna think about this, like, right? Like he
Yeah.
just lost a hand. Maybe he's messing with me. Like
Yeah. It's valid. It's for sure valid. Like I wouldn't change my strategy accordingly. I would like, oh no, I'm gonna 3-bet call ace 8 suited because he thinks I'm on tilt and he's gonna punt ace 2 off. I wouldn't make such a huge adjustment, right? But I would take that into consideration and say, yeah, I might be perceived as a little tilty now that I lost the pot. So for that reason, I would always 3-bet here. Like not for that reason, but it's worth mentioning for spots when, let's say, ace jack suited, for example, here, or ace queen. I would always also 3-bet, especially when you already start building a little dynamic, playing a little pots. People then like to overvalue the dynamic and start being a little more aggressively. Yeah, I like your check. I really like your check on the flop.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the point really of betting. Like I think maybe if I bet, it obviously would have been very small, but I don't think the guy's gonna get too out of line.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think the guy's gonna get too out of line on the turn just because I checked on the flop and stuff. So obviously, like the fact that a king came on the turn now makes my life really easy. But yeah, I just didn't see much points to betting the flop.
Yeah, you're either doing it intuitively correct or you started the short stack section very thoroughly from the Tournament Masterclass. But it's important to consider, intuitively right. Did I say intuitively wrong? No, you're doing it intuitively right here.
Yeah.
Because this hand, it would kind of suck to face a check raise or a check shove. If he has jack 10, 10-8 suited, or maybe weirdly played 6-5 suited, you still have a lot of equity. Even if he's 9-8, 10-9 with your backdoor flush draw and overcards, you have still a lot of equity. It would be much, much better to bet this hand when you're deep, because you can always peel at least once a check raise if you think this guy is spewing around a little bit. But in general, this hand here, when you have 30 big blinds and less, especially in 3-way pot when the stack to pot ratio is that short, you want to be checking back on this board.
And what do you think about the sizing on the turn?
I think 6 big blinds would do the job, but not a big blunder. It's just for your bluffs a little expensive, and you're gonna get it in by the river anyway with this stack to pot ratio. Is this already final table or is it still?
No, we can scroll to the final table if you want after this. I'm checking how much was involved in the hands and trying to pick like some of the more interesting ones. So this guy raised the button at defense.
Tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I love how he bets quite big as well. This is okay, I guess, or
I would just check raise the turn. I don't mind checking the turn again. I would prefer betting, but I think it's not a big deal. For those of you who think, well, why I'm saying so often, okay, this is okay, this is okay. Well, in poker, you have many game trees available. You can bet small, you can bet big, you can check. And very often, some of the game trees have a very similar EV. And of course, checking your nut flush is profitable here. But I would slightly prefer betting out. He has a lot of hands that gonna check back, but not gonna bet. Like if he has pocket nines, if he has pocket sevens, especially if he pocket nines with one diamond, if he has something like king jack with jack and diamonds, he has king highs, flush draw, taking a showdown value. If he has an ace, he's always gonna call anyway. The thing is, you only gain more EV if he start fooling around with pocket deuces without a diamond. Like you get some extra value from his bluffs, which I don't think on this board. So you again just straight for value, get the money in against hands that would never bet but call a bet. And in case he's low played an ace, he's never gonna fold. Like you have perceived so many bluffs. You can bet a 9 or a 7 with your gut shot or flush draw. You just bet 4 big blinds and bet big again. What I like though, and even though this is a very fucked up and uncommon line, is check call turn and then donk the river. Because I think he might even be afraid betting an AC, or like he can have pocket kings, pot control, pocket jacks, puts you on a diamond and then snaps you off. So I really like this donk bet on the river on these stakes.
And the sizing you think is okay?
Yeah. You're basically saying I have a full flush or better.
Yeah.
Which is a very hard to believe after you took this line. So yeah, I expect a lot of hero calls. I wouldn't bluff this spot.
Just this what seems like a standard reshove, right?
Yeah. I see people open shoving ace jack, ace 10 there, trapping with aces kings. It's literally ace king the only hand I'm afraid of. He's min raising. He's not open. Yeah, very standard. Very standard. Either as a reshove or a call. Like we have to go with it.
I think like the structure is sped up like crazy. By the way, like at this point, it's like nobody really was deep.
Okay.
This guy shows blind versus blind. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it would take for me to fold knights here.
I wouldn't even fold sevens. Probably not even sixes. Is this a final table or?
No, yeah, I think. Oh, actually, yeah, it must be. Actually, I will open really quickly the thing I sent you earlier with the page jumps, so I can.
Yeah,
see
I have
names.
it open.
So yeah, like.
No, it's not final. It's final two tables, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Well, some of the names that were on the finish towards the end are on the table for sure.
Yeah. Boris
the animal. Is another guy. You think is this just a reshove or?
I would just call. The good thing about these, so yes, there are some hands that you would fold out against a 3-bet, let's say king jack off, or but that's pretty much it. Everything else you have dominated. If he has a weaker ace, if he has king queen, it just plays so well post flop. And if the blinds shove and he goes over the top, you have an easy fold. And here you're just isolating yourself against better hands. What? He's really an animal. Yeah, maybe you had a read on him. Per SD4, I would always call and play in position.
Stonewell. He defends with. Damn. I wonder, like, this is the kind of stuff where, like, I don't know the range of what hands he would defend here with this stack size.
Because it's random. He's from the big blind? Like 70% of hands? He can have everything.
Really?
Yeah. Good sizing from your side. And, yeah. Pretty standard. Yeah, he definitely has to defend 7-5 off against the min raise here.
Okay, now I think we must be really close. You see, like, this is the end of the hands here.
Okay.
Basically, for the tournament on the under it. This is a very small sizing. Like, because he's in big blind, he's supposed to have like a lot of different hands, and the only one that he can have that really beats me right now is an ace or like some sort of like not flush draw. But I got a blocker on their heart, so I guess that would be my reasoning on why I don't need to bet like really big and stuff. And like, if he calls, that doesn't mean I will think I'm beat immediately. But like, would you say this is a bad sizing for this flop, or it's okay?
No, it's not bad at all. We certainly get a call from an 8 or 7. I definitely prefer betting over checking because, especially when a king or jack rolls off, he might be already start check folding against the delayed c-bet. So I definitely want to c-bet here. At least around 1/3 pot is fine, and get value from an 8 or 7. So yeah, turn is magical.
And then I sized it so I could shove. Really,
yeah,
basically.
that's. Lucky.
I think that's a go. I was not in that hand. Or... Oh yeah, okay. So this is definitely a spot that I'm not very familiar with. So I mean, small blind versus big blind.
Yeah.
I just limp, and he makes it 3.5. Not so much info, and he has like pretty small stack behind. Would you let this go, or I just thought like I hadn't played much with this guy before. I feel like when he does it, he actually he must have it like such a big percent of the time that I don't like my ace-7 so much anymore.
So you would fold?
Actually, what the? Oh, yeah. Actually, I think this was one of the spots where I really didn't know what to do. Like I thought maybe I should fold, maybe I should call. Like it was, I don't know. Like I still to this moment, I have no idea between all of the options. Like I feel like some people maybe would tell me that you need to have like a limp shove range as well. I feel like if you would have info, you'd probably play different maybe as well. Like it's.
I mean,
this is the kind of spot that like I know nothing about in that right.
Yeah. So that's why I always try to approach it from a very theoretical standpoint when I don't really know anything about this guy. So as a default, it's never bad unless this guy is super tight. And in these days, people know that you can also bluff raise. Like if he has 10-5, he knows like that you're going to be limping hands like 7-6 off. You're going to be limping like 9-7 off. Hands like King-5 off, Queen-8 off. You just have to pay half of a big blind. So there are a lot of hands that he can easily attack with. So yes, some players are too tight in these spots, but then you have also players that are very aggressive. So now it's our job to find out who we're playing against. When we don't know, in a vacuum, it's okay to just limp shove some of your ace-X with less than 25 big blinds effectively. Because he's going to be raised folding so much. As default, if you don't know, just call. Like you can never fold here. Like you call all your aces. If you limp a suited king, you call. You limp call king-8 off and better. You limp call, let's say 9-8 off, 10-8 off. If you have jack-5 suited, you limp call. There's also in the Tournament Masterclass ranges for blind versus blind what to do. If you maybe want to check it afterwards, maybe we can. Do
you think the ranges are universal, like depending on the player's image, or like
because the thing is that you will encounter players that are too aggressive, that we can basically jam everything and it will still remain profitable. Then you have players that don't raise enough and it might be a little bit messy. However, in a vacuum against the player pool, it will be profitable because sometimes we make a lot of money. We maybe make 8 big blinds against one opponent, and then another we might lose 5 big blinds. But on average, we're gonna gain 2 to 3 big blinds, right? So we don't know who we're playing against. Sometimes we make wrong decisions based on information we don't have access to, and that's okay. That happens. It's a game of incomplete information. What we're trying to do, and that's where the Tournament Masterclass ranges help. That's where I did a lot of, based on my experience and hours of research of database analysis and GTO solves, that at least it will be good enough against the player pool. And sometimes you will run into an opponent, he just raises 8s plus, ace queen plus, and you jam into this range and you just make a huge punt, but you don't know. On the other side, you might run into an opponent who raises 4-5 off, who raises 9-3 off, tries to be aggressive, and then this play is printing because he's just going to be folding 80% of the time, and you pick up those 5 big blinds 80-90% of the time.
Earlier you talked about the players that maybe don't have so much time and play recreationally like me. I'm not playing every day. Do you feel like for us we might want to pick a different line here in spots, like maybe look for the more plus EV lines because we're not playing as much? So like the spots that are like slightly plus EV, like for you they're clear cut, you need to go for them. So do you think that for us maybe we need to think about that stuff and maybe look for the more plus EV plays, or do you think as long as we play a decent amount of poker, it's still okay to take this line here because it's plus EV?
It's not necessarily about what is more plus EV. Maybe then, if for someone who's not so experienced or doesn't have so much time to dedicate for poker, is then take the less variance line. In this situation, just call and play post flop. You continue on dry boards when you think your ace high is still good. You call once. If you hit your ace, you call, and if you make a good pair with your 7, you call. Other than that, then you just check forward on the flop.
Yeah.
If you're also not really sure, I always say to beginners, the least variance line would be just call. The next least variance, you can also 3-bet fold. You can re-raise to 9 big blinds and fold if he jams. Play your hand as a bluff if you think he's fooling around. And then if you jams, you don't risk 25 big blinds, you only risk 9 big blinds, and then you continue with 30 big blinds. Right? So always think about all the options, especially if you're not sure. And if you're not sure whether something is the right play, like you did, then go with the least variance play or the lowest variance play. If that makes sense. Because intuitively, you have to do something with ace-7. Like folding would feel like a crime, but you don't really know. But then you go, it's like a check mark. And then, we probably have to do something. Okay, I'm not really sure whether shove or call, then call. Or 3-bet fold, which is pretty sexy as well, actually.
I still associate a lot of the offsuited aces as like trouble hands because so many times I've overplayed them. So in the hand ranking that I have in my head, I never rank these maybe as high as they should be. And
for blind versus blind, they're quite strong.
Yeah.
It's so like since you already have an ace, taking out one ace out of the deck, it's just less likely that, like, not like super unlikely, but it's less likely. And that's where I prefer relying on statistics than on intuition or feeling. Yeah, now hijack one position later. Also min raise 6 is fine.
No, he.
Yeah, you call. He min raises.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
Nice line.
Oh, you just fold.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, usually I play like micros. Like I play like very, very low binds, and they love to check raise their strongest hands. So because like it's like a player tendency, like population, I always associate that with like a really strong hand here.
Yeah, it is. It's good that you bet though, that you're not afraid of facing the check raise, because he still has Jack 10 in hearts, he has Queen Jack and diamonds, and you don't want these cards allowed to see a free card.
You would have called or?
No.
Oh, this was?
Yeah, no. Never.
Actually, like a lot of these were just pretty straightforward. I guess this one might seem another one of those offsuited aces. At this time, I didn't hesitate much. I guess he's a little bit shorter.
Yeah, less than 20 big blinds, shoving any aces is always profitable.
This is fine, right? Because we're short-handed and cut off, yeah. We shove.
What would you be calling here?
It's 27. It discounts as 27 effective, right?
Yeah.
Or 28, actually, almost. I guess King Queen suited. I mean, it depends on the guy as well, right? King Queen suited, like eights plus.
What do you think he's reshoving with? Don't you think he might be flat calling a hand like Queen Jack suited pre-flop and just play post-flop?
Yeah, it's always hard to tell without much info. Like, the first thing I would look at here is how many times did he 3-bet, and it says 0, but it's not that many hands. It's only 26 hands, but it's the first time that he's done this. I guess like you have to associate him with a decent amount of strength. So I feel like King Jack is, for me personally, I feel will always be a fold there for these stack sizes. If he had been like, I don't know, maybe 17 bigs or something total effective, maybe I'd lean a little bit more towards calling. But yeah, these are the spots I need to study more myself.
Yeah.
And I'm still always kind of questioning, like, is it too close? Like, is it just slightly plus EV, or maybe should I look for like the more EV spots as well?
Yeah, King Queen suited is not even close, I would say, because I would expect he's shoving something like Ace 10 and better, and then some pairs. So you're never going to be ahead with king queen, and you also don't get so favorable odds since you're so deep, relatively deep.
Yeah. So you will fold king queen suited?
Yeah, all day long.
Even cutoff versus button?
Yeah. I people just call king, queen jack suited. You have, in order to make it profitable, he has to reshove king jack suited, queen jack suited, jack 10 suited, like all of them. Which is just in this stage of the tournament, when you run deep, people also get a little bit more passive and tight and afraid of the money. So
that's the main way you look at it. You don't also think of like all the smaller pocket pairs that maybe it's gonna show.
You're still flipping against them.
Yeah.
You get 45% equity, meaning you can do it real quick. You're slightly behind. You have maybe 47% on average against the low pair.
Yeah.
So it's still not going to be enough. Plus, he's going to have queens. He's going to have ace king. He might not necessarily have aces because he might be 3-betting them. But with king queen suited, if I assume he reshoves all the pairs, deuces plus, ace jack plus, and ace 10 plus, you have 40%, 41%. So you still need 4% more.
Yeah.
So if I give him, let's say, all the suited broadways, then you have 40, and then it's just a break-even call. But then if he reshoves ace suited Broadway, he's also going to be reshoving ace 5 suited, which again is going to hurt your equity. So if I give him even king queen off and all the suited Broadways and some ace 5 suited, you had 44% here. Yeah. Sorry, I have to.
To be honest, maybe that was a little much for even king queen suited.
Yeah. If he's on 17 big blind, it's a much better risk reward for him. It feels much easier to reshove queen jack suited. And then also you get a better price. You only need, instead of 44, you might only need 42% or 41%. And then it gets much better. Maybe you check out the call regem ranges in the TNC.
Yeah. Like actually, I think like those are the things that I focused on a lot at first. And I think a lot of the time I'm like decent, but sometimes there will be some spots like this where I'm not so certain.
Yeah, good raise fold.
So now this is, I'm pretty sure that I'll check the other thing. This is maybe a final, I guess, 2 table still there.
Yeah, it's a very borderline call, but I like it. He's going to be shoving all the middling, like 10-9 suited, queen jack, jack 10, some suited connectors, 9-8, 8-7 suited. He only shoves 6 big blinds. Wow. I was just thinking, how can you win chips here? Oh, he needs to have a very, very bad hand.
What do you think, like open shoving to opening here?
Both options fine, very player dependent.
With all of these guys being so short.
If you think they're going to be reshoving wide on you, I would raise. If you think they are a bit more scared, passive, and they start still calling hands like jack 10 suited, like if cutoff just calls ace jack instead of reshoving, if he still peels a hand like pocket sixes that he would fold against a shove, then I would always shove. Like it's both lines have merits and disadvantages. You will end up in spots where big blind calls or small blind calls, the board is 7-9-8, you're like, fuck, I should have just jammed. Sometimes you jam and nobody calls, and maybe someone would have rejammed his ace jack when he would have min raised. Like, sometimes we just don't know.
So just lost the flip.
Yeah, very short here, of course.
Keeps doing this thing. Well, like he raises but keeps like half a big blind or something.
All right, now we have 1.5 big blinds.
This guy is robbing me.
But I guess there's not a hand anymore that needs some clarification.
Well, that happens. And let's check if the final hand was correct. I believe it was, yeah. I'm way too short.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Nice.
And so I finished 13s for $335 euros. And yeah, first place was 6.5k.
That's the pain of the deep runs, my friend.
Yeah.
Getting teased and then fuck you, go home with a few $100 when there's 7k for first almost.
Yeah.
Or, 6.5k. Well,
it seems like like the spots where I lost the ace king suited versus d8s and stuff like.
Yeah. You gotta hold
do these ever haunt you?
No.
As well, or
No.
You just you're able to move on super well.
Yeah. Maybe for a few seconds I'm like, oh, can I not just win these? But then, just a few seconds.
Because I'm pretty sure that for me and for anybody that plays as a hobby, these are always gonna pop up in your mind for a little bit after that. And if I just won it.
But that's if you would play more, if you play full time, then you get used to it at some point. It's like the pain point just increases that where it starts hurting. Like you just because of losing a flip, it's not gonna bother you that much anymore. Like it needs a couple of bad beats or a couple of really painful situations where you start complaining and starts haunt you maybe for a few days. But if you play it as a hobby, then it can be very, very bothering.
Yeah. All right.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else that you need to clarify? You would like to?
No, I was just really curious about the thing. I thought about it beforehand too. The thing I asked about the EV and stuff. And if you're recreational, maybe you should play a little bit different. And another way to talk and ask about it is if you know that people are calling a little bit incorrectly and sometimes to lose, do you think maybe it would be better to not shove the borderline hands and maybe wait a little bit more?
It always depends if there's something you can gain through your all-in or your call or investing your chips, whatever action it is. If you can put yourself in a position that you're chip leader so you can open raise more hands, then it's worth taking a marginal spot. If there's nothing you can gain additionally, you're actually in fact risking your stack or you're risking a good position that you're in, then you should for sure avoid it.
I mean, more when you're a pretty short stack.
Yeah.
Let's say you have 12 big blinds and then the hands that are plus 0.08 or whatever, or even plus 0.50 or something.
Oh, 0.50 is pretty big for 12 big blinds, but if it's below 0.01 or something, then you can pass on these spots. Now, the thing though is that if you know relatively good what kind of hands to shove, then you should pass on them. If you feel lost, if you have no clue, you just started and you feel very overwhelmed with all these different positions and the hands you might be potentially shoving, and you have these range charts, but you haven't really internalized it, then you should take every plus EV spot, because very likely you're going to do more mistakes. And already knowing this spot is a little bit plus EV, then you should also go for it. Then you should take more marginal spots. The better you are, the more often you want to skip marginal spots. The worse you are, the weaker you are, you have to take more marginal spots, because you will less often recognize profitable spots. And then once you have one, even though it's marginal, you should take it. To at least
it's almost the opposite of what I thought.
No, because if you're good, you're going to get more profitable spots. You will see more spots that are profitable. There's no point in taking a margin spot. That's the difference to cash game. In tournament, the better you are, the more you want to be taking. Picture WSOP main event first hand. You have kings and a guy open shoves for 200 big blinds. As a good player, you never want to call. There people even debate about maybe folding aces, because you're just going to have such a big edge playing non-showdown poker, not risking your stack in all-in situations in such soft tournaments, that you can make up for giving up EV in this situation, that you will win back later on by collecting better spots where you don't need to risk your tournament life. I'm opposite. I think that calling aces, I would always snap call there because I think it's hard to make up for the loss in EV that you will make through folding aces.
Yeah.
But just to give you the approach that is currently out there, and that this is basically the understanding of this situation, that the better you are, the more you want to pass on marginal spots.
But what if you're recreational like me and you're not very good either?
Well, if you know, okay, this spot is marginal, I think it's profit, but I think it's very marginal. You should go for it. Like if it's short, of course, you still have a relatively good edge. You might be a little bit too aggressive here and there, but your c-betting is fine. You understand the ranges. You understand positions. This will really give you good edge. This is, especially on micro stakes, people don't think that far. So the deeper you are, then you should, of course, not try to get involved with really weak holdings and big pots pre-flop. Play small ball poker. Try to play with a lot of hands, small pots, and then just once you have a good hand, you try to build a big pot as much as possible.
Yeah, no, I meant mostly though, like when I'm like, 20 big blinds or less, and then I kind of know what hands are like slightly plus EV. I meant like passing on those and stuff.
Again,
I've asked a friend before who's like also a high level player, and he told me no, like you should just go for them every time and stuff. So
if he's giving that advice to you because he knows maybe that you struggle a little bit with the short stack ranges, then yeah, it makes sense. Then you should take them. But if you feel comfortable, if you know roughly what to reshove from a lot of positions, if you don't make big mistakes, if you don't punt off your stack, then you should be maybe passing on these spots and wait for better spots. It's a very generic topic, of course, and hard to specify, but that's how it works.
Okay, all right, makes sense. Thank you.
Great, Todd. One last question. What do you think about the future of online poker, the future of streaming, and the future of esports?
That's a lot of subjects.
Make it short.
The future of online poker, you said first?
Yeah, well, start with whatever you want. I mean, you're so involved in esports, you're involved in poker, you're involved in, like, if someone is capable of answering this question, it would be certainly someone you also, since you have the comparisons between esports and poker, maybe what would you change in poker in order to make online poker better that maybe rises it on a level as esports or maybe even above?
To be honest, I'm not sure because I feel like I play a lot of games, but I don't really like look outside of what's happening. I don't necessarily understand everything that's happening like around the games and around poker that much. So I feel like it's kind of hard to tell, especially online poker. Like I've only been playing like kind of actively like for a year, maybe a year and a half now. So I kind of like the place that where online poker is at right now. Like it feels like there's a lot of players at any given time that are playing and stuff all the time, and it seems like it's somewhat developing. I mean, I follow a lot of poker through Twitch, so it seems like the numbers are growing, the streamers are getting some pretty big numbers. I watch videos on YouTube, they also get some good numbers, so it's good to see. Like obviously when you play a game like poker or video games, the bigger the player base, the better it is for the game every single time, I think, because then you always have people to play with and there's just large enthusiasm for it. So I think online poker has definitely got a bright future, in my opinion, in regards to that. And yeah, as for esports, same thing. I'm not surprised that esports completely took off and that it gets crazy numbers on like so many games. I don't necessarily work on the games that are like the most popular out there, but even those games have like a lot of users and people playing them all the time. But I think it was no secret for anybody that plays video games that a lot of people in the world play video games and have passion for it. So yeah, I wasn't surprised to see the rise of esports and becoming this like massive industry. And I think it's only going to keep on growing, really. And kind of the same thing. And about streaming, same thing. Like the industry, actually, like I come from a time where streaming didn't really exist for the most part. Like we had like 240p streams. We had like a radio cast. Like when I think back on it, it was terrible. But back then we didn't even mind because we had something at least to follow the tournaments. But now to see somebody playing first person while they're commentating and they're doing it in like 1080p or something, it's actually insane to think about. I feel like almost like an old man, like a dinosaur that came from a different era. So I think we're very lucky to be living in times where like this is actually possible, where whether it's for video games or for poker, and I think like all of these industries will only keep on developing and becoming bigger and bigger.
Maybe last question, then I'm gonna stop torturing you. And to be fair, I think you're in fact an expert, because there are not so many that you've been competing in esports for 10 years. You're used to you casting. Yes, you might not be following everything, but you certainly have more behind the scenes information or insights than everyone of us does, and you still are involved in poker. What do you think? Why is esports still developing in a pace that, for me personally, if you look at the numbers, outperforms poker? Like if you look at the numbers, esports, if you look at the numbers for final tables in poker, it always gets way less viewers. If you look at final table that there is a million at first, you have a couple of thousand viewers. If you have an esports tournament where it's a million for first, you have tens of thousands of viewers. If you take Russian stream, English stream, like all the foreign languages streams as well, you probably get multiple hundred thousands of viewers. Why is poker so far behind, in your opinion? Do you think is there something?
I think because poker initially is not something that's played on a monitor. Video games are always played on the monitor, so we're already used to it. So if you're gonna watch a tournament on a video game, it's gonna be there on the monitor, just like the same way you would usually play. Now watching it. Whereas poker is something that's played live. So if you think in terms of pure numbers and player base, the poker player base is massive around the world, but that involves so many casual people, like play recreationally and might not necessarily want to watch a tournament or necessarily even know that they're happening online. That might not have so much appeal to them, right? It's like for them sitting behind a screen and watching a game that they usually play live, and they enjoy that. So I think for a lot of poker players, they also probably enjoy playing more than watching. Like it's
fair enough.
It's not necessarily it's not like action jam packed, like people are gonna go crazy all in and stuff. Like you watch most tournaments, it's a lot of folding. You have ICM. They're trying to, obviously you're gonna have fun tables sometimes and fun characters, but a lot of people, they've just got headphones on. They're not really talking at the table, so it's not as entertaining. The commentators, they can do a good job of that sometimes, but it's still not a super fast-paced game in comparison. Where like video games, depending on what you're watching, there's going to be action. There's always going to be something happening.
Yeah.
The commentators, they're going crazy. They're shouting. It's kind of like we equate video games, like we kind of compare them to sports all the time. Sports are also pretty entertaining to watch. They've also got giant fan bases.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, like take football as an example. There's a lot of people that play. There's some people that used to play and now only watch because they got a favorite team to support. It's kind of what they fell into, and then they kind of stayed in that. So I feel like for poker, even though it's got a giant player base and people that play, monthly or every year, they might not, the appeal is just not there for them necessarily, for all of them to go online and watch a bunch of poker games as well.
Fair enough. Actually, something I haven't been thinking about like this from the angle that you're approaching it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. ToD, thank you so much for taking the time, for sharing your experience and wisdom with us. Guys, don't forget to like, to subscribe, and also share your questions, your feedback in the comments. I will get back to you. And don't forget to subscribe to follow more poker action and poker content in the near future. And then see you guys, and good luck at the tables.